Remove that shirt. Now. The command sliced through the afternoon air like a whip crack. That marking violates our community decency standards. Cover it immediately or leave the premises. I stopped dead, one hand still on my daughter's shoulder. We'd been walking toward the mailbox just another Saturday in Pinewood Estates, Arizona. Nothing special. Until her. The woman stood 10 feet away, arms crossed like a school principal who'd caught someone with contraband, designer sunglasses pushed up into perfectly highlighted hair. She wasn't asking, she was commanding. My daughter Bailey froze beside me, 16 years old, and suddenly looking 12 again. Her hand flew to her collarbone, fingers brushing the ink that peeked above her tank top, black numbers framed by delicate wings. "Excuse me?" My voice came out flat, controlled. "Your daughter's tattoo," the woman continued, gesturing at Bailey's chest like she'd spotted a biohazard. "Visible body markings on minors are explicitly prohibited under Section 4.7 of our updated community standards. That woman was Victoria Ashford, president of the Pinewood Estates HOA, self-appointed guardian of suburban perfection." She didn't yell, didn't need to. Victoria's weapon was policy delivered with surgical precision, but then something flickered in her expression. Her eyes locked onto those numbers above Bailey's heart, 892K, and for just a heartbeat, her confidence cracked. She blinked. Her mouth opened slightly, like she wanted to ask something, then snapped shut. That tattoo wasn't decorative. It was a transplant registry code. The number assigned when doctors at Phoenix Children's Hospital said my 16-year-old daughter had 3 weeks to find a liver donor or she wouldn't see her 17th birthday. Victoria didn't understand what she was looking at, but I did. I stepped between them. That policy you're citing didn't exist last month, and if you're planning to write her up for visible body art, you'd better show me the filing date. I deal with permits and code enforcement for a living. I know how documentation works. Her jaw tightened. Pinewood Estates maintains presentation standards. Show me where it says that. My voice never rose. I just held her gaze until she looked away. The board voted on youth appearance guidelines 2 weeks ago, then produced the meeting minutes with timestamps and county filing receipts. I pulled out my phone because I requested a full copy of the CC&Rs 5 days ago. There was nothing about tattoos. Nothing. Victoria's lips pressed into a thin line. "I'll have the documentation sent to your residence by end of business today, Mr. Garrett." She turned and walked away, heels clicking like a countdown timer. Bailey hadn't said a word. When I looked down at her, she was staring at the ground, arms wrapped around herself. "She can't do that, right?" "No," I said. "She can't, and I'm going to prove it. I'm Ryan Garrett. I don't yell. I document." For 15 years, I've worked construction, supervision, and permit coordination across Maricopa County. What I lack in patience for bureaucratic games, I make up for in knowing exactly how the system works. I also buried my wife, Caroline, 18 months ago. Pancreatic cancer. She fought for 11 months. That community garden Bailey and I had just walked past, Caroline designed it during chemo. The memorial bench beneath the willow tree has her name on it. Bailey's tattoo, the one Victoria decided was inappropriate, was inked 4 months after Caroline died. After 9 weeks at Phoenix Children's, waiting for a liver. After coding twice on the operating table. After months of medications that left her barely able to walk. 892K was her donor match code. The number that meant she'd live. So when Victoria Ashford ordered her to cover it up, what she really said was, "Your survival is aesthetically inconvenient." I didn't argue at the mailbox. I just walked Bailey home and opened my laptop. If Victoria wanted war, she'd better have her paperwork in order. The first violation arrived 45 minutes later. Hand-delivered. Laminated. Unauthorized memorial structure, community garden area, improper placement without current board pre-approval, Caroline's bench, the one unanimously approved in 2022, with signed minutes and a county permit. I scanned it, logged the timestamp, saved 3 copies. By morning, 4 more violations appeared. Landscape stones, mailbox color, Bailey's bicycle. Her car's bumper sticker that said, "Organ donor, be someone's miracle." Bailey found that one taped to her windshield. She came inside without a word. Just set it on the counter and stared. Dad, why? Because she thinks we'll fold. Will we? I looked at my surviving daughter and felt something cold settle in my chest. No, we're going to bury her in her own fraud. I spent that evening building a timeline. Every HOA violation issued in Pinewood over 2 years. Every policy update. Every county filing. The tattoo policy Victoria cited? It didn't exist. But a draft did. Buried in the HOA's Google Drive. Dated 12 days ago. Never voted on. Never filed. Created by V. Ashford at pinewoodstates-hoa.org. She'd written it herself. Never brought it to a vote. Tried to enforce it anyway. I called my friend Marcus Chen, a land use attorney. She's issuing citations under policies that don't exist. Send me everything. That's fraud. 20 minutes later, Ryan, she's not logging these in the official ledger. She's running a shadow system. Meaning if you can prove it, you don't just win, you dismantle her. Bailey started wearing long sleeves in 100-degree heat, parking in the garage, avoiding the garden. One night I found her on the patio, knees to chest, staring at nothing. She made me feel like surviving was shameful. My throat went tight. You didn't do anything wrong. Then why does it feel like punishment? Because people like Victoria can't handle anything that disrupts their perfect world. Bailey looked at me, eyes red but fierce. So what do? We fight back, with facts. The next morning, I started asking neighbors, "You ever get hit with a violation that seemed off?" Mrs. Kowalski, cited for a yellow ribbon wreath. Her son was deployed overseas. Mr. Properis, Washington fined $400 for parking his mobile vet van in his own driveway. The Millers' violation for their daughter's violin practice at 2 p.m. on Saturdays, nowhere near quiet hours. Every story, random enforcement, no warnings, no documentation. We paid the fine. It wasn't worth the fight. That's how Victoria operated. Isolate, intimidate, crush. But she'd picked the wrong target. By late afternoon, I had 9 residents willing to provide statements. 3 offered copies of their violation notices. The pattern was unmistakable. Victoria ramped up enforcement before elections. She targeted anyone who questioned her. She punished residents who didn't support her projects. It wasn't governance. It was systematic retaliation. I needed someone inside. Someone with a conscience. Stephen Torres, the HOA's compliance coordinator. I'd seen him at Caroline's bench dedication. He told me his own mother died of cancer. I found him at the pool the next morning. "Stephen, you know what Victoria's doing to my family?" Guilt flickered across his face. "I heard there were violations, 6 in 4 days, for things that don't exist." He looked away. "Ryan, I just coordinate, but you log them, and these aren't in the official ledger." Silence. "Stephen, she's fabricating enforcement. You know that violates the CC&Rs?" "I know." Barely a whisper. "But if I speak up, I'm not asking you to take sides. Just don't let her erase the truth." He stared at the water for a long moment. Then he pulled a USB drive from his bag. "Backup of the tracking system, before she started editing." "Why?" "Because your wife helped plant flowers at my mother's grave, and because Victoria fined me for having a hospice van in my driveway when my mom was dying." He walked away without another word. I stood there, USB in hand, feeling everything shift. I spent the next day buried in files. The USB was a gold mine. Complete violation archive before Victoria's tampering. Cross-referencing showed dozens of discrepancies. Violations removed. Fines altered. Warnings vanished. In a subfolder labeled Priority Enforcement, Garrett. R. Memorial Bench. Escalate for removal. Establish non-compliance pattern. Dated 3 weeks before the mailbox confrontation. She'd been planning this. The bench was always the target. I clicked open the tattoo policy file and pulled up its hidden data. One click and the truth lit up the screen, like blood on white fabric. Creation timestamp, 2:34 p.m., same day as the confrontation, 21 minutes after. The text was plagiarized from a 2021 pool memo. Victoria had copy-pasted old language and tried to pass it off as law. According to CC and R's, all amendments required 4 board signatures. This had one, Victoria's. Auto-generated. No vote, no minutes, no legal standing. Her digital fingerprints were everywhere, impossible to deny. I had her, but then my phone rang. Marcus. Ryan. Problem. Victoria filed a harassment complaint. She's claiming you're using your position to intimidate the board. My stomach dropped. I know, but she's got 2 board members backing her. If this moves forward, it could sink everything. What do? We counterfile. But Ryan, one wrong move, and she flips the narrative. I hung up and sat in silence. For the first time, I felt real fear. What if she actually won? What if my fight to protect Bailey destroyed us? Bailey appeared in the doorway. Dad? I looked at my daughter and forced myself to breathe. Just a setback. We're fine. But I wasn't sure I believed it. That night, I went back through every file, looking for anything I'd missed. Then I saw it. 1 violation entry with a failed edit. The digital ghost of Victoria's original attempt still existed in the file structure. She'd retroactively changed an issue date to make us look non-compliant longer than we were. Premeditated, systematic fraud. And I had proof she couldn't erase. But would it be enough? The email arrived at 6:23 a.m. Subject: Final notice. Escalated violation enforcement. Due to continued non-compliance, the board has authorized third-party removal of memorial structure. You have 72 hours. She was accelerating, trying to finish before her authority crumbled. I forwarded it to Marcus. She's panicking. Good. Desperate people make fatal mistakes. We file for emergency injunction. How fast? By 10 a.m. I walked outside. Caroline's bench sat peaceful in the morning light. Bailey was already there, tracing her mother's name on the plaque. They're coming for it. Not if I have anything to say about it. What if we lose? We won't. But what if... Bailey. I sat beside her. Your mother built this to last, just like she raised you to last. Victoria can't erase that. Bailey nodded. Then let's make sure she knows it. But that afternoon, everything collapsed. A police cruiser pulled up. 2 officers stepped out. Ryan Garrett, we need you to come to the station. Questions about a harassment complaint. My heart stopped. Bailey grabbed my arm. Dad, it's okay. Just a misunderstanding. At the station, they showed me Victoria's complaint. Detailed. Calculated. Claiming I'd threatened her, stalked her property, used my professional position to intimidate board members. 2 board members had signed affidavits supporting her story. Mr. Garrett, these are serious allegations. They're lies. Can you prove that? I opened my mouth. Closed it. What if the USB wasn't enough? What if Victoria had covered her tracks better than I thought? What if I'd missed something critical and she was about to bury me with my own overconfidence? They let me go after 2 hours. No charges. Not yet. But the message was clear. She was willing to burn everything down. When I got home, Bailey was crying in her room. Not the quiet kind. The deep, body-shaking kind that comes from a place of complete exhaustion. Dad, I can't do this anymore. I just want it to stop. Maybe we should just move. My world tilted. My daughter, my fighter, my survivor, was breaking. I sat on the edge of her bed, feeling more helpless than I'd felt since Caroline died. Bailey. She's going to win, Dad. She always wins. People like her always win. I wanted to tell her that wasn't true, that justice would prevail, that good people triumph. But in that moment, staring at my daughter's tear-streaked face, I wasn't sure of anything. That night, I sat in my office, staring at the USB drive like it held answers to questions I hadn't even asked yet. What if there was something I'd missed? Some piece of evidence that made everything undeniable? I opened the tracking system one more time, scrolled through every entry with fresh eyes. Then I saw it. A hidden log file buried 3 folders deep, time-stamped edits. Every single change Victoria had made, with before and after snapshots, automatically saved by the system. She'd tried to delete the audit trail, but the software had ghosted every edit. A perfect record of her fraud. 53 violations altered, 21 completely fabricated, dates changed on 37 entries, and every single edit traced back to her account. It wasn't just evidence. It was a confession written in ones and zeros. I called Marcus at midnight. I found it. The system logged every edit she tried to hide. Can you authenticate it? I can show exactly when and how she committed fraud. Step by step. Silence. Then, Ryan, this doesn't just win the case. This ends her. I spent the rest of the night building a presentation, not technical jargon, visual proof anyone could understand, the kind of evidence that couldn't be talked around or explained away. By dawn, I had a file that could destroy Victoria's entire operation. The emergency board meeting was in 18 hours. Time to finish this. The Pinewood Clubhouse was packed. Not just retirees, actual residents, young families, people who'd never attended meetings. The air crackled with anticipation, like everyone knew something big was about to break. Victoria sat at the head table, and that's when I finally saw what everyone whispered about. A crimson red blazer that fit like armor, draped open to reveal a black silk blouse with a plunging V-neck. Matching pencil skirt with a subtle slit. Glossy red heels that caught the light. Chestnut hair in perfect waves. Lips the same bold crimson as her blazer. She looked like power incarnate, untouchable. Until I walked in with a projector and laptop. Her eyes flicked to me, then to the equipment, then to Stephen, sitting 2 seats away, staring intently at his notepad. Good evening, Victoria began smoothly. Tonight's agenda includes pool maintenance, landscaping schedules, and point of order. I stood. The room went silent. Mr. Garrett, if you have a concern, submit it through proper channels. I've submitted it 6 times. 0 response. I plugged in the projector. So I'm raising it now. This is highly irregular. So is enforcing policies that don't exist. The first slide appeared. The tattoo policy. Metadata visible. You created this 14 days ago, then enforced it as established law. That's fraud. Victoria's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That was a preliminary discussion. It wasn't. Next slide. The tracking system comparison. These violations were deleted from the official ledger, all under your account. That's baseless. It's a digital trail. I clicked again. The hidden audit log appeared on screen. Every edit, every alteration, every fabrication. 53 violations modified. Dates changed. Fines invented, all time-stamped, all traceable, all hers. The room erupted in urgent whispers. Phones came out. People leaned forward in their seats. "Oh my God," someone whispered. "She's been lying the whole time," another voice said. Stephen finally spoke, his voice quiet but steady enough to cut through the noise. "She asked me to delete entries. When I refused, she did it herself." Victoria's face flushed crimson, nearly matching her blazer now. "Stephen, you're completely out of line." "No, you are." He stood, and I could see his hands trembling slightly. "I watched you fabricate violations and target residents who questioned you. I stayed silent because I was terrified. But I'm done being complicit. You'll lose your position for this," Victoria said, her voice dropping to something darker. "I already resigned," Stephen replied. 2 hours ago. Emails in your inbox." Victoria opened her mouth. Nothing came out. I wasn't finished. "Let's talk about my wife's memorial bench." Next slide. The priority enforcement spreadsheet. 3 weeks before confronting my daughter, you flagged our family for escalation. Not because we violated anything, because you wanted the bench gone. I let that sink in for a moment, watching the information register on faces around the room. My wife designed that bench while dying of cancer. The board approved it unanimously in 2022. It was properly permitted and legally installed. But you decided it didn't fit your aesthetic vision. Mrs. Kowalski stood up in the third row. She cited me for hanging a support ribbon for my son. He's deployed in Afghanistan. Mr. Washington rose next. She fined me $400 for parking my veterinary van in my own driveway. The Millers stood together. She violated our daughter for practicing violin at 2 p.m. on a Saturday. One by one, residents began standing, each with a story. Each a victim of Victoria's systematic abuse of power. The board members beside Victoria were shifting uncomfortably now, exchanging glances, the reality of their president's operation becoming impossible to ignore or deny. Motion to suspend President Ashford pending external audit and compliance review, Patricia Morrison said, her voice steady and formal. Second, James Fletcher added immediately. 6 hands rose. Then a 7th. Victoria sat frozen, her crimson blazer suddenly looking less like armor and more like a target painted on her back. All in favor? Aye. The voices came in unison, definitive. Opposed? Silence, hung in the air like smoke. The vote was unanimous, but Victoria wasn't finished. She stood slowly, and for a moment, something cracked in her carefully constructed facade. Not anger. Something deeper, something raw. You want to know why I enforce standards? Her voice was quieter now, almost vulnerable, because without order, everything falls apart. She looked directly at me, and for the first time, I saw past the blazer and the lipstick to the person underneath. My daughter was bullied so badly at her last school that she tried to end her life, 14 years old, because nobody enforced anything. No consequences, no structure, just chaos that nearly killed my child. The room went completely still. You could have heard a pin drop. So yes, I control. Yes, I enforce. Because I watched my daughter almost die, because people didn't care enough to maintain standards, to protect the vulnerable. For 1 second, I saw it clearly, a mother who turned trauma into tyranny, who'd confused protection with oppression, who'd become the thing she feared most. But then Bailey stood up. I hadn't even known she was there, hidden in the back row. Mrs. Ashford, she said, her voice clear and strong. I'm sorry about your daughter. I really am. She walked toward the front, and every eye in the room followed her. She pulled down the collar of her shirt, exposing the full tattoo. The numbers, the wings, the proof of her survival. But you don't get to punish me for surviving because you're scared of losing control. Victoria stared at Bailey, then at the tattoo, then at her own trembling hands. Bailey stepped closer, fearless now. Your daughter deserved protection, but I deserve to exist. And you don't get to decide which stories are allowed and which ones get erased. The room exploded in applause. People stood. Some were crying. Victoria stood frozen for one more moment. Her perfect facade finally shattered completely. Then, without a word, she gathered her papers with shaking hands and walked toward the door. Her heels clicked against the tile, no longer a countdown, but a retreat. The door closed behind her with a soft click that somehow echoed like a gavel striking wood. And just like that, it was over. Victoria's resignation came 3 days later. Brief, professional, admitting nothing. After careful consideration, I have decided to step down as president of the Pinewood Estates HOA, effective immediately. I wish the community continued success. No apology, no explanation. Just a quiet exit that reeked of legal counsel and damaged pride. But the real story wasn't in her resignation. It was in what came after. The HOA hired an independent auditor, a firm specializing in community governance compliance. Their report, released 2 weeks later, was devastating. Over 150 violations issued without proper authority. Approximately $38,000 in fines collected under questionable circumstances. Systematic pattern of retaliation against residents who questioned board decisions. The board voted to refund every penny. Some residents donated their refunds to a new community transparency fund. Others kept them, but everyone got the choice. More importantly, they implemented new oversight protocols. All violations now required dual sign-off from 2 board members. All policy changes needed 45-day public comment periods before implementation. Every enforcement action was logged in a publicly accessible database with full audit trails. No more shadow systems. No more manufactured rules. No more silent retaliation. Stephen declined his position back when offered, but he agreed to serve as an external compliance consultant, reviewing quarterly audits to ensure accountability. 3 months later, Pinewood held its first open forum under new leadership. The clubhouse was full again, but the energy was completely different. Collaborative instead of confrontational. Transparent instead of secretive. Patricia Morrison opened the meeting with a simple statement. Before regular business, I'd like to recognize someone who reminded us what accountability looks like. Ryan Garrett exposed systematic violations of our governing documents and resident rights. Because of his diligence, we've implemented reforms that make Pinewood a more just and transparent community. She gestured toward me. Ryan, would you like to say anything? I stood, uncomfortable with the attention, but understanding its importance. I didn't do this for recognition. I did it because my daughter was punished for surviving, and once I started looking, I realized she wasn't alone. I looked around the room at faces I'd come to know over these months of fighting. Every person here has a story, a struggle, a battle they fought. The question isn't whether those stories fit someone's idea of perfect. The question is whether we have the courage to let them exist. Applause rippled through the room. Not thunderous, thoughtful. The kind that means people actually heard you. Later, as residents filtered out, several people approached me. Some thanked me. Some shared stories I'd never heard about, past injustices they'd never reported. But one conversation stood out. A young couple with a toddler, new residents who'd moved in after Victoria's departure, approached hesitantly. Mr. Garrett, the woman said, we almost didn't buy here. We heard the HOA was really strict. But then we found out what you did, and we figured any community willing to hold its leaders accountable was worth joining. Her husband added, our son has a port wine birthmark on his face. Pretty visible. In our old neighborhood, we got comments, stares. One neighbor even pulled us aside and suggested we look into cosmetic procedures. He's 3 years old. The woman's voice caught. When we learned about the new transparency rules and heard your daughter's story, we knew we'd found the right place. A place where being different doesn't make you a target. I didn't trust my voice, so I just nodded and shook their hands. A year later, Bailey graduated high school, top of her class, full scholarship to Arizona State University, pre-med track with a focus on transplant medicine. At the graduation party we held in our backyard, surrounded by neighbors who'd become genuine friends through the battle we'd fought together, Bailey stood on the patio and tapped her glass for attention. The conversations quieted. I want to say something, she announced. A year ago, someone tried to make me ashamed of this. She traced the tattoo on her collarbone with her finger. They said it was inappropriate, that it made people uncomfortable, that it violated community standards. She paused, looking around at the faces watching her. But my dad taught me something important. Survival doesn't apologize. It doesn't hide. It exists loudly, visibly, unapologetically. So to anyone here who's ever been told their story is too messy, too visible, too real, I see you. This community sees you. And you belong here exactly as you are. The applause was immediate and sustained. Mrs. Kowalski wiped tears from her eyes. Mr. Washington raised his glass in a silent toast. And I stood there, watching my daughter own her story without shame or hesitation, and felt something I hadn't felt since Caroline died. Peace. Not the absence of conflict, but the presence of something stronger. The knowledge that we'd fought for something that mattered and won. 2 years later, I received an unexpected email. The sender, Victoria Ashford. I stared at the name for a long moment before opening it. Mr. Garrett, I don't expect forgiveness, and I'm not asking for it, but I wanted you to know that what happened in Pinewood changed my life, though not in the way you might think. I lost my position, lost friendships, Had to move to Scottsdale to escape the reputation. For months, I blamed you and your daughter for destroying everything I'd built. But therapy, a lot of it forced me to see what I'd actually built. A system where control mattered more than humanity. I was so terrified of chaos after what happened to my daughter that I became the bully I'd tried to protect her from. I'm working in patient advocacy now at a medical center, helping people navigate healthcare bureaucracy, making sure they're heard, not silenced. It's humbling work. Last month, a mother told me your daughter's story inspired her to stop hiding her son's medical journey. She said Bailey's courage gave her permission to exist without shame. I wanted you to know that the change you forced, the transparency, the accountability it created ripples far beyond Pinewood. Your daughter was never the violation. I was. Victoria. I read it 3 times, each time seeing something different in the words. Then I showed it to Bailey. "What are you going to say?" she asked. "I don't know if I should respond at all." "You should," Bailey said without hesitation. "Not for her, for you." I thought about it for a full day. Then I wrote back, "Victoria, accountability is uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable. You're doing the work, and that matters. I can't offer forgiveness, that's not mine to give. But I can acknowledge that you're trying. Keep trying. The mother whose son you helped? That's proof you're becoming the person you should have been all along. I hope you find peace in that work, Ryan." I hit send before I could second guess it. Bailey smiled when I told her, "That was kind. Your mother taught me that justice and compassion aren't opposites. They're partners." Today, Pinewood Estates thrives under transparent leadership. Property values have actually increased not because of stricter rules, but because people want to live in a community that values humanity over appearance. Caroline's memorial bench still sits beneath the willow tree, flowers placed there regularly by neighbors who never knew her but understand what she represented. The garden has expanded, more benches, more memorial plaques, a space where survival is celebrated, not hidden. And Bailey? She's in her 3rd year of medical school at the University of Arizona, specializing in transplant medicine and patient advocacy. She volunteers with organ donation awareness groups, helping families navigate the transplant process. She gives talks at high schools about her experience, not just the medical part, the whole story, including Victoria, including the fight, including the cost of survival in a world that sometimes wants you to disappear. She still wears that tattoo. 892K. Her donor code. Her victory. Not hidden under long sleeves. Not apologized for. Just present the way survival should be. Last month, a teenage girl came to our house. She'd found Bailey through a transplant support group online. The girl had a heart transplant scar running down the center of her chest that she'd been hiding under high-necked shirts for 2 years. Bailey sat with her on our back patio for 3 hours, answered questions about recovery, about rejection, about the fear that never quite goes away, showed her pictures from her own journey, reminded her that scars aren't shameful, they're proof of battles won. As the girl was leaving, she hugged Bailey tightly. "Thank you for showing me." "Showing you what?" "That it's okay to take up space." I still live in Pinewood Estates, still work in construction and permitting across Maricopa County, still walk past Caroline's bench every morning on my way to get the newspaper. And every time I see someone stop to read the memorial plaque, to sit for a moment in the shade, to leave flowers or notes or small tokens of remembrance, I'm reminded that the most radical act in a world obsessed with perfection isn't fighting power, it's refusing to disappear. Victoria Ashford tried to erase my daughter for surviving too visibly, for wearing her battle scars where people could see them. Instead, she sparked something that told thousands of people across social media, in news articles, in conversations at other HOA meetings across the state. Your survival is not a violation. Your scars are not shameful. Your story deserves space. And no HOA president, no policy manual, no person who values order over humanity gets to take that away from you. Ever. If you've ever been told your story is too loud, too messy, too real, this one's for you. If you've ever been punished for refusing to hide your truth, for taking up space, for surviving too visibly, you're not alone. Subscribe, because there are more battles ahead, more stories that need telling, and you'll want to be there when we fight them. Drop a comment. What injustice should we tackle next? Because silence has never saved anyone, but the truth builds memorials that last forever.